Hello and welcome to Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. My guest for this chat today is Akshobh Giridhardas. He is a journalist and public policy analyst based in Washington, D.C. And we're going to talk about the election campaign in the U.S. As you're aware, it's about 3 months to go for Election Day. Akshobh, thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Surya. Pleasure to chat with you.
Right, first question. The Joe Biden appears to have built up seemingly insurmountable lead. How accurate are these figures, and does that, in a sense, put Trump, beyond the pale in on election day?
Oh, far from it. I mean, well, look, Biden does have a lead in the polls, but we've seen before black swan events keep happening. It happened in 2016 as well. Until the last day, a lot of people called it for Hillary, and then it just switched, and Trump won Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. And as you know, in the U.S. elections, it's down to electoral college, so that makes more of the difference, not the popular vote. We've seen what happened in the 2000 election with Bush and Gore and hanging chads. So it's not over until it's over. So the polls are a good indicator, a good barometer, but they're far from, the final coup de grace in anyone's campaign. And Trump being Trump may not necessarily concede easily on election day, even if he loses. So you never know.
Mhm. Would you say that the coronavirus would have impacted his prospects?
Absolutely. Surya, in my last chat with you, one of the things I did mention is if you look at the US elections in the last 100 years, only four incumbents have lost. Three of the four lost when there was an emergency. While Trump is an incumbent and incumbents normally are favored, Trump is handling an emergency. Now, of course, Trump obviously was not the origin of COVID, but what incumbents always judged upon is how well they handle COVID. And clearly, based on the cases, the US is the most infected country, well over 160,000 deaths today. The US crossed 5 million cases, and there's no sign of, done so any sign of slowing down. I mean, perhaps we've gone away from April and May, but we're still very much in pandemic crisis mode. States are coming out, and this is clearly, if you see some of the polls in Wisconsin today, there's definitely the hope and optimism that Biden will be more assertive and more attuned to it. And if it all depends on healthcare and vaccines, if any, or how that process plays into factor. But by Trump is certainly being judged by his efficacy or the lack of efficacy in the way he's handled COVID.
The Some of the major issues concerning the coronavirus appear to be happening in democratic ruled states. Does that, in a sense, help him?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if you look at it after after states opened up, a lot of the cases were in Republican states. I mean, Texas and Florida, are currently by Republican governors as well, and even in other southern states in Arizona, and there were cases that spiked up. So it's not just, even though in the beginning New York was the most infected, but that's just because of the population of New York State, just because New York City is a central hub, and people coming from all over. So it's not a question of Democrat states necessarily, but of course, the real question comes down to how effective have governors gone about handling it. And we've seen that Texas and Florida have come in for blowback in the way they handled it, or the rush to reopen states in the quest to restart the economy meant that it became a zero-sum game, in the sense that quickly opening up to restart the economy meant compromising on healthcare and compromising on health as well, and hence we had more COVID cases.
So, do you get the sense when you go out there, meet people, talk to people, that there is anger in this country about the coronavirus, how it's been handled? Do you get that sense?
Well, there's definitely no doubt there's a sense of questioning the way that certain leaders have gone about handling it as well. And of course, Trump has come in the firing line for the way he's handled it. I mean, in the beginning, there was a sense of like this is just gonna. Trump literally said that this is gonna go away in April when the weather gets warmer. April was one of the worst months, as you've seen with the spikes. There is a sense that Trump was a little slow to close down, airports, and there was a sense that there was a sense of nonchalance about it, or not taking it as seriously as possible. Or there's even a quest of like the rush to or reopen schools and get restart the economy. And this is unfortunately in a pandemic. This is not really as time bound as a quarter to quarter system. So in the
Yeah.
quest to reopen the economy, as I said, that there has been more blowback in terms of cases, in terms of public anger, but there's also been a sense of frustration from a lot of people who haven't followed social distancing guidelines. We've seen the mask debate has become a contentious political debate as well. So that itself is something we can talk about it further. But
Yeah. I mean, it tells you something about the character of American people, isn't it? I mean, is it, bravado? What is it?
well, there is a sense, in my opinion, that there's this perverse understanding of certain people in certain cases you've seen, like the extremes, of course. While most people have followed social distancing guidelines, perhaps the exception that you've seen on viral videos, there's a sense of this perverse distortion of freedom. Uncle Sam cannot tell me what to do, and anything that someone tells me is something that is impinging on my rights. But that itself is very absurd because taking away looking at minor inconveniences as wearing a mask and a social healthcare necessity and precaution is no way to be confused with suppression of rights.
Yeah.
Actual freedom means other people should not feel threatened by your lack of negligence, and wearing a mask is no way suppression of rights. It's common courtesy and a necessary healthcare precaution prescribed by the CDC.
Okay, let's get to Joe Biden.
Yeah.
How important is the choice of running mate, a black or a woman, a black and a woman? Is that critical to his prospects?
So I mean, firstly, Biden himself was a vice president, under the Obama administration. So let's look at this a little more closely, right? In a lot of ways, vice presidents are sort of picked to balance the ticket, right? If you look at how Biden himself was picked in 2008, Obama, freshman senator from Illinois, came in with this passion and this fiery speech. He was a charismatic choice, but he was competing against a gerontocratic elderly statesman in John McCain, and
Yeah.
who was and John McCain was kind of comparing Obama as someone who didn't have enough experience and with a rock star personality. So Obama complemented that by picking someone who was a sagacious old Caucasian gentleman in Joe Biden. How do you beat a John? By picking an old guy called John, pick an old guy called Joe. And Obama did not have the foreign policy experience because he's a freshman senator. He didn't have the military experience that John McCain did. John McCain had this all-American hero tag. He was a POW. He has spent years in the Senate. Joe Biden was Senate Foreign Relations, the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So Biden himself was picked there. As far as Biden's pick goes, what vice presidents really do in a lot of ways is, either deliver key demographics or reassure the key demographics, add in key swing states, or more importantly, complement the ticket. Coming back to 2008, the reason why John McCain picked a very absurd wild card like Sarah Palin was because Obama was running away with the election. So if you read the book Game Changer, watch the movie, the idea was we need to pick someone to complement Obama. So it was, throwing the gauntlet, and they were losing the women vote, so they needed a woman. So they picked Sarah Palin. McCain was not seen as conservative enough, so he picked someone who was more conservative and to appeal to the base. So Biden himself will follow some of those policies. And right now he's mentioned on the primary that he'll pick a woman candidate, and of course, various women are being vetted. Of course, the Democrat Party has historically a very strong minority voting base. So it wouldn't surprise anyone if the women vetted, and most of the women right now being vetted are from people of color, and people like Senator Kamala Harris and Susan Rice or Tammy Duckworth. So these are some of the names tossed around.
Mhm. But if you look at Kamala Harris's prospects, she came out of that earlier race pretty early, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. In fact, she was one of the people who took the first punching shots at Biden, because Biden back in the day opposed busing, and into and Senator Harris, who said it was a story that personally affected her, and so she attacked Biden on that. Clearly, look, Senator Harris dropped out the way so Joe Biden dropped out in 2008. He was one of the earliest ones to drop out when he was running against Obama, his future boss. But of course, Senator Harris would not be a pick to deliver a state because she's from California, which is solid blue. I mean, it's one of those
Yeah.
states that Democrats don't have to really worry about California and New York, the way Republicans don't have to worry about Texas. So she won't be picked to win a state. She'll definitely be picked to assuage some of the minority vote, to add to the fact that there are already three males on the ballot. That's Trump, Pence, and sorry, three males in the race. That's Trump, Pence, and Biden. So to have a woman vote would be far more powerful. And at the same time, she will definitely add a more, I wouldn't say a generation younger, because Biden, if say he were now is one of the oldest nominee of the Democrats, and say he were to win this and campaign in a second term, that would be in his 80s. You need
Yeah.
someone at least 20 years younger to you.
Yeah. Mhm. Now, it's been said that since Biden is a Democrat and all that, he will anyway get the minority vote, the black African vote and all that. So, therefore, he needs to have perhaps needs to build up his support among the white community. Is that an argument you've heard?
Sure. I mean, if you look at it, Trump's base has been among white, non-college going voters. I mean, at least some of the Rasmussen polls have pointed out, it's particularly states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, like Midwest and Pennsylvania being, a steel state. And a lot of them, that is sort of what Trump's core base has been. So definitely, if Biden, you really win elections more than just apart from securing your base is eating into the other base. And when the Democrats flipped the House in 2018, more than progressives winning, what the centrist Democrats, like people like Biden and other centrist Democrats did was, claw back seats from Republicans. So if you look at it, where Hillary sort of lost the race was states like Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, and Biden can win back a lot of the Rust Belt and states like Pennsylvania and purple states. That's what really gets the elections, right? You always say it comes down to swing states. Florida, Ohio's, Pennsylvania's of the world.
Mhm. So this time, the postal ballot, there's a lot of debate about the postal ballot and what Trump could do to, torpedo that. Is that very important this time because of coronavirus and all that?
Well, it's definitely a concern with a lot of people will voting by mail, but of course, Trump, being Trump, has definitely issued his comments on it. I mean, it remains to be seen. We're still in election cycle, so it remains to be seen how things progress, because there's no clarity right now and on the sense of voting, because a lot of people are expected to vote by mail, because the last thing you want is large numbers congregating as well. As you've seen, like even during the primary season, a lot of people voting became a concern as well in the Democrat primaries. Trump, of course, has made his comments clear. He's spoken about things like voter fraud, mail fraud, but there's a definite there's something between rules, there's something between substance. You have to separate the noise and clutter from factuality, but it is definitely so it's anyone's guess right now going in on what Trump could say come November.
What would you identify as Biden's key domestic priorities,
Sure.
assuming he's elected?
You know, I've always said in the beginning that Biden's actual platform is he doesn't have a platform, in the sense he's running as Obama's third term. Because if you think about it, in the Democrat primaries, the Democrats had women candidates, they had people of color, they had LGBT candidates, but they picked someone who was a elderly gerontocratic male in Biden. And because Biden was running on the legacy era of being a vice president, he was running as being a safe choice. He's going to largely forward a lot of Obama's progressive ideas. Healthcare is, of course, very important. Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, that will definitely be on Biden's agenda, particularly now. So with COVID, I mean, the rush to find a vaccine, unlikely. I mean, I don't want to be a soothsayer on assuming when we're going to get a vaccine. That's for the CDC and others to decide. But if a vaccine doesn't come by this election, and say Biden were to come into office, that becomes priority number one. It is priority number one, and that'll be on Biden's top agenda. It'll be a lot of economic recovery, because the unemployment numbers are staggering. A lot of Americans are out of work, and it'll become a lot of Democrat core principles, such as raising the minimum wage, creating a social security safety net, healthcare. These will be a continuation. So in some ways, it'll be an Obama third term. So that will, and of course, immigration. I don't think you will see heated Trump-like immigration rhetoric. So there'll be a lot of the talk on DACAs and Dreamers. Not so much about the H-1B and high-skilled workers. That never really happened under Obama as well. The rhetoric was more, not rhetoric, the conversation was more toward DACAs and Dreamers and people who believe in the American dream coming from different places.
Mhm. And in foreign policy, one of the concerns in India is about how Biden could change some of the more positive aspects in which Trump has dealt with India. I mean,
So
he
I
is somebody who seemed to have cracked down on Pakistan, and the thing against China is very, very popular here.
So, Surya, I want to just kind of answer the foreign policy part. I know the debate, but let me just say that India and US relations are politically agnostic on both sides. Now, since the 1990s, we've had every permutation combination of Democrat, Republican, BJP, Congress. Look at this. In 1990s, we had Democrat, BJP, Clinton, Vajpayee. We had Bush, Vajpayee, Republican, BJP. We had Manmohan, we had Manmohan Bush, that was Congress, Republican. We had Manmohan Obama, Congress, Democrat. We had Obama, Modi, Democrat, BJP, and now we've had,
Yes.
Trump and Modi, Republican and BJP. And Modi has dealt with Obama the same, good way, the way he has dealt with Trump. The bonhomie between India and the US, between the State Department and South Bloc and MEA, will continue. That's where the real policy is set. Let's not forget how the Modi and Namaste Trump, these will be there for large shows, but the real policy is done in Foggy Bottom, Washington, D.C., and, South Block, Raisina Hill, and stuff. So India US relations is politically agnostic. I'm not worried about that. Biden will continue it. Of course, there will be concerns where a lot of the Democrat core values of raising concerns of human rights thing will continue. And the Republicans under Secretary of State Pompeo has done it with Xinjiang and Uyghur cases in China. Democrats will definitely raise that as well. As far as Pakistan, let's not forget, it was under Obama administration where the Abbottabad raid of Bin Laden happened, and President Obama didn't visit Pakistan even once during his term, but came to India twice.
Yeah.
So I think the real foreign policy just it lies away from just what we see. Of course, there'll be executive orders now and then which could affect various measures such as immigration. But let's not forget one thing: India and US relations is a very strong strategic partnership that has sort of now has a very solid base and is working its way up. So I don't see that apple cart drop, Surya.
And you expect Biden to continue some of the tough talking that Trump has done with Pakistan and with China? I mean, there are a lot of questions about, especially when you look at China, there are a lot of questions there, I mean, I don't know how accurate these are. Trump has made various allegations. How true are these?
So, look, if you look at even the 2012 presidential debate, the one thing that Obama and Romney coalesced on is China and trade and unfair rules as well. Look, Biden will continue some of the tough talk as far as trade is concerned. There could be more. There's definitely a security concern uh, the national security apparatus feels, whether it's a Republican or Democrat administration, more so with certain administrations. So China is not the China that we saw 20 years ago, and we've seen that events in India, right? There was a sense of Deng Xiaoping's China, peaceful China rise, is different from Xi Jinping's more assertive thing. So look,
Yeah.
Biden will of course be the Biden administration, and he's got a huge foreign policy team working on his campaign, and a lot of them will be jostling for key positions when if Biden were to take office. Biden will definitely look at the South China Sea more closely, and Indo-Pacific is a key thing right now for the U.S. He'll definitely have closer ties with the Korean Peninsula, and be wary of what East China Sea, and will talk to India more closely and see what India's concerns are. So there will be definitely a concern because China is not going anywhere, and the sense of geo-economic rivalry with the United States will continue. So Biden will be there. I think Biden will definitely be tougher on Russia as compared to what we've seen with Trump and Putin. But I think most importantly, Surya, the most important foreign policy thing is what Trump has sort of, eschewed from was a sense since the Bretton Woods system in the 1940s and 45 was US sort of taking a central role, right, in institutions from World Bank and IMF and NATO and alliances, and Trump's and Obama, sorry, his whole move was TPP, this pivot towards Asia, which Trump has just gone away from. So I think Biden will sort of get more of an inclusive role, with Europe and NATO and UK, and sort of the position that a lot of US allies feel that the US has vacated because Trump has been a very insular, inward-looking president and trying to be more domestic focused.
But one could say that that has also been popular in the US. There is a turning away from foreign adventures, isn't there?
Absolutely. Look, like when someone votes, someone, say a steel worker in Pennsylvania or someone working on the cornfields of Iowa will look at the fact that and Trump has rhetoric that's spoken to them saying, countries taking a job, globalization means jobs going outside, and we want to make Harley Davidson in Wisconsin without looking at laws of economics of is it cheaper to manufacture elsewhere, and so that there is a sense of popularity, right? There's a sense of reverse globalization for some people, But and that'll be there. There's a sense of insular voting trends, a sense of domestic economic nationalism, that will still have play a part in this election, and some people who still feel strongly about it will vote for Trump the way they see fit. But I think Biden largely, and he's no stranger to the foreign policy game. He's been head of the Senate Foreign Relations Chair. He's been vice president for 8 years. He's been in the Senate longer than for many years. So Biden will definitely have. He's not coming into this as what Obama did. Obama came in with relatively less experience in foreign policy. Biden definitely has enough. Is the oldest Democratic candidate to run. I mean, to get the nomination. So Biden will be far more experienced on this front.
And what do you expect Biden to do in Afghanistan? Stay the course that Trump has set?
That's a very good question right now because Zalmay Khalilzad has had his views on on Afghanistan. There's been this withdrawal. Don't forget when Biden was vice president and in the vice president debate against Paul Ryan, Romney's vice president candidate, Biden said we're going to evacuate by 2014, and this is 2012, and we're in 2029 right now, and we're talking about what sort of peace deal we can strike. It all depends on what Biden takes over. If at all Biden comes in January, where it is, and then from there he has to reassess. If America's already out of Afghanistan, then Biden will have to deal with it in that sense. I think what Biden will definitely do is be cognizant, and he will definitely listen to the advisors, likely to listen to the advisors more so than Trump. Definitely be more cognizant of the security risk and the ramifications of leaving behind a vacuum. And we've seen that right now with the Taliban, what they mean and what the Taliban were. I mean, so that is definitely a risk, and you don't want you want to try. The U.S. goal is trying to rebuild Afghanistan in some ways. Walking away completely from that could be fatalistic, and these are Afghanistan commentators speaking about it, not me. So Biden would definitely be more cognizant of the risk of vacating completely from Afghanistan without having a plan B.
Okay, last question. RCEP and a trade agreement with India. What are the prospects under Biden?
Well, India had its own views on RCEP. Like India said that the Indian Washingtonian view here was that it didn't align with our interests, and India said that look, we don't want the Indian market to be flooded by goods. But more importantly than RCEP, it will be what TPP, because Obama's pivot towards Asia was the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and it was done because China was part of RCEP. So it was Obama, ASEAN nations. And Trump withdrawing from the TPP was, and I've said this before, was like scoring an own goal, in the sense that the goal was to counter China. And by withdrawing the TPP, it was like China won the game without even playing it. It was like forfeiting. So I think Biden will be more cognizant of that. He'll be with the Indo-Pacific strategy, will be very cognizant of the ASEAN corridor, the Indian Ocean corridor. Australia will play a bigger part in that. We've seen right now with Quad engagements. So there'll be more multilateral engagement. I think that is what I think a lot of the foreign policy commentators and American allies want, a stronger sense of multilateralism. Trump has always been a more business transactional kind of person based on his personality and his apprentice days, and that he's always been like two guys sitting in a room over cigars and a drink, and Trump doesn't drink, but can work out a deal. Trump looks at everything like a real estate deal. Foreign policy and multilateralism doesn't work that way. There are multiple layers of nuance and complexities. I think Biden is more cognizant of it. I would end by saying this, Surya. What Biden said in quote is that this is a wrestle for America's soul. Or what someone else said, one of his staffers said, that Biden will restore a sense of civility, to quote what the staffer said, because Trump has been a very different president for sure. Twitter didn't exist for too long, and it came about when Obama was president. But under Obama, it was formality and announcement. Under Trump, it's been the go-to source. Before a White House press release, Trump has already tweeted about it. So I think Biden's Twitter will be, for want of a better word, far less entertaining, but perhaps to use the staffer's word, perhaps a little more presidential.
So Biden presidency could see a return to something known and familiar of American foreign policy, but there is also a comfort for India in having a guy like Trump around. Akshobh Giridhardas, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you and listening to your perspective on the US elections. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Surya. Pleasure is all mine. Thank you for doing this.